Life often feels like a steady trajectory, like a rocket cruising through space with engines calibrated, systems aligned, everything mapped with precision, a mission plan that gives you the illusion of control, and you begin to believe that the course you've set is unshakable, that all the milestones you've charted will unfold as expected. But the truth is far less predictable, because at any given moment, a single unexpected collision can alter your orbit forever, and it's in that moment, the one you can't schedule or anticipate, where the true story of your life begins to shift. Think about it. We build routines, schedules, structures, and we tell ourselves that control equals progress, that safety equals success. But what really defines us are the collisions we never saw coming, the disruptions that feel like meteors slamming into our well-designed trajectory, and suddenly the gravity changes, the direction changes, and so does the meaning. When I imagine these collisions, I don't see them as disasters. I see them as inflection points, like the exact moment a rocket executes a burn to change orbit, to aim for a new planet, to take a risk that shifts everything. Most people fear collisions because they equate disruption with chaos. They fear that a break in the plan means failure. But I see it differently, because disruption is the birthplace of breakthrough, and chaos is often the raw material for transformation. We like to think that progress is linear, that success is incremental, but the reality is that the most defining changes in life come suddenly, abruptly, like a switch flipping in a dark room, and in that instant, what was once invisible becomes undeniable. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people miss their collisions, not because the collisions don't happen, but because they're too busy protecting their comfort to notice. They dismiss the unexpected as an inconvenience, instead of recognizing it as the invitation it is. They treat a chance meeting, a sudden failure, or an unforeseen challenge as something to avoid rather than the very moment that could redefine them. The collision I'm talking about could be anything: the stranger who walks into your life and changes your definition of connection, the opportunity that seems too risky but turns out to be the gateway to a future you didn't think possible, the setback that at first feels devastating but forces you to evolve in ways you never would have chosen on your own. My life has been a series of collisions, from the ridicule of trying to build rockets outside the realm of government agencies to the resistance against electric cars that everyone said would fail, and in each of those collisions I had a choice: treat it as destruction or embrace it as propulsion. The reason SpaceX exists today, the reason Tesla exists today, is not because the trajectory was smooth. It's because the collisions forced us to find solutions, forced us to evolve, forced us to grow into the people capable of sustaining the mission. And the same is true for you. Maybe you've lived your life on autopilot. Maybe you've played it safe, kept your head down, followed the rules, built a path that feels secure, and yet something inside you knows that security is not the same as fulfillment, that safety is not the same as significance, that there's a difference between moving and truly living. The collision is what wakes you up. It might feel inconvenient. It might feel like everything you've built is at risk, but it's also the doorway to everything you've been craving. The universe has a way of disrupting us when we get too comfortable, of forcing us to confront the reality that control is an illusion and growth demands chaos. Physics tells us that an object in motion will stay in motion unless acted upon by an external force, and in your life, that external force is the collision, the meteor, the disruption that interrupts your autopilot and demands a recalibration. You can ignore it, you can fight it, you can pretend it's not happening, but if you're honest, you'll recognize that the moments that have most defined you were never the ones you meticulously planned. They were the ones you stumbled into, the ones that startled you, the ones that felt like accidents but turned out to be the design. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in collisions. I believe that every unexpected encounter, every failure, every disruption carries the potential to redirect you towards something greater, but only if you're willing to see it. Only if you're willing to embrace the chaos instead of resisting it. Think about your own life. Think about the times when everything shifted. Was it because you followed the plan perfectly, or was it because something unexpected forced you off the map? That relationship you didn't plan, that career shift you didn't anticipate, that challenge you never asked for, those were your collisions, and they made you who you are. The question is not whether collisions will happen, because they will. The question is whether you'll recognize them and use them, or let them slip by unnoticed, dismissed as random inconveniences. Every rocket launch is calculated down to fractions of a second, but even then, adjustments are required mid-flight. Collisions with reality force you to adapt, to correct course, and that's the difference between failure and orbit. Your life works the same way. You can cling to the illusion of certainty, or you can embrace the truth that the collisions are where the meaning lives. And here's the paradox. The collision that at first feels like it's knocking you off course might actually be the very thing that sets you on the trajectory you were meant for all along. So stop fearing collisions, start looking for them, start paying attention when something interrupts your autopilot, because that interruption may be the signal you've been waiting for, the pivot point that rewrites your entire story. In that moment, you'll feel it: a spark, a jolt, a shift in gravity, and you'll know that life is no longer about the plan you thought you had, it's about the opportunity to create a new one that wasn't possible until the collision gave you no choice but to change. That is where transformation begins. That is where innovation begins. That is where life begins, not in the smooth cruise, but in the unexpected collision that demands you to become more than you were yesterday. Most people live their entire lives on autopilot, following routines, checking boxes, moving from one day to the next as if life is just a series of predictable tasks to complete, and they confuse that motion with progress. But there's a fundamental difference between existing and living, between coasting along the path someone else set for you and actually charting a course towards something extraordinary. And that difference is everything, because autopilot might keep you safe, but it will never take you anywhere worth going. Think about it. Autopilot in a rocket is useful. It keeps the ship steady, it maintains trajectory, it handles the predictable calculations, but autopilot cannot initiate breakthrough. It cannot decide to explore a new planet. It cannot innovate. It can only maintain the status quo, and that's exactly what most people are doing in their lives. Maintaining status quo, staying steady, avoiding risk, mistaking comfort for purpose, mistaking safety for success, and the result is decades of existence without ever truly feeling alive. The danger of autopilot is not that you fail. The danger is that you succeed at the wrong things. You spend years optimizing routines that don't matter, chasing goals that aren't yours, living out a script written by culture, by family, by society, until one day you wake up realizing you've been efficient, but not fulfilled, and that realization is devastating because you can't get the time back. Life on autopilot feels deceptively safe because there's predictability. You know what's coming next, you know how to handle it, and you tell yourself that predictability equals peace, but what it really equals is stagnation, because growth only happens at the edge of uncertainty, only when you take manual control and decide to push into territory where you've never been before. And that is terrifying, but it's also where life gets interesting. When I built Tesla, there was no autopilot mode for what we were trying to do. The industry had been stuck on autopilot for a century, content to burn fossil fuels, to do things the way they'd always been done, and we had to take control, rip the system off autopilot, and risk crashing in order to create something new. And that's exactly the lesson for life. If you want breakthrough, you have to turn off autopilot. You have to risk the chaos of manual control. The irony is that people fear taking control because they think they'll crash. But what they don't realize is that staying on autopilot guarantees a slow crash into mediocrity. And mediocrity is far more dangerous than failure, because failure teaches you something, it forces you to adapt. But mediocrity lulls you into a lifetime of wasted potential. If you're honest with yourself, you already know where you've been living on autopilot. You can feel it in the areas where you're just going through the motions, where you're not challenged, not stretched, not excited. You wake up and repeat the same day over and over, like you're coding the same loop endlessly without ever upgrading the program. And deep down, you know it's not enough. Breaking free from autopilot doesn't mean reckless chaos. It means intentional disruption. It means looking at your routines and asking which ones are serving you and which ones are just keeping you asleep. It means questioning the goals you inherited from others and asking if they truly align with who you are and what you want. It means creating moments of discomfort on purpose so that you wake up, so that you remember that you're alive. When you turn off autopilot, life gets harder, but it also gets brighter, sharper, more real, because suddenly you're not just reacting, you're choosing, and every choice carries weight, every risk carries potential, and every failure carries a lesson that autopilot would never have taught you. I don't believe we're here just to maintain systems. I believe we're here to push boundaries, to test the limits, to see how far we can go. And that applies to your life as much as it applies to rockets or cars or neural networks. If you're living on autopilot, you're essentially outsourcing your existence to inertia, and inertia doesn't care about your dreams. It only cares about maintaining motion exactly as it is. But you are not here just to drift. You're here to build, to disrupt, to create, to collide with the unknown and come out transformed. Ask yourself this: if tomorrow you woke up and every routine you've been following was erased, if all the scripts disappeared, what would you choose to build? Who would you choose to be? Where would you choose to go? That question terrifies people because it exposes how much of their life is habit, not intention, but it's also liberating because once you see the autopilot, you can choose to turn it off. Life beyond autopilot is not predictable, it's not easy, it's not safe, but it's the only life worth living because it's the only one that belongs to you. So stop mistaking efficiency for purpose. Stop optimizing for comfort. Stop pretending that autopilot is progress, because deep down you know it's not, and you owe yourself more than that. The world doesn't change because of people on autopilot. It changes because of people who took control, who risked the turbulence of manual flight, who embraced the uncertainty of exploration. Be one of those people. Take your life off autopilot, and you'll discover that what felt like risk was actually the path to freedom, the path to growth, the path to becoming everything you were capable of becoming. Most people confuse wealth with money. They think the number in their bank account, the car in their driveway, the size of their house is what makes them rich. But that's a fundamental misunderstanding because money is just a tool, a placeholder, a representation. It is not the source of wealth. It is not the essence of prosperity. True wealth is measured in value, in the problems you solve, the impact you create, the legacy you leave. And once you understand this, your entire relationship with success changes because money comes and goes. Markets rise and fall. Currencies inflate and collapse. But value endures. When I started Tesla, the goal was never just to make money selling cars. The goal was to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy, to create value by solving a problem so significant that if we succeeded, humanity itself would be better off. And when you anchor wealth to value instead of money, you tap into something that lasts beyond balance sheets. SpaceX is another example. People thought it was crazy, a billionaire building rockets, but the goal was not money. The goal was to make life multiplanetary, to ensure survival of consciousness itself, and if we succeed, that's value on a cosmic scale. Money is a byproduct, not the target, and that is the lesson most people miss. If you chase money directly, you might catch it, but you'll always feel empty, because money is inert. It doesn't inspire, it doesn't drive, it doesn't fill the void, but if you chase value, money follows, impact follows, fulfillment follows. Think about it. The wealthiest people in history are not remembered for their bank accounts. They are remembered for the value they created. Edison with electricity, Jobs with personal computing, Ford with mass production. They disrupted systems, solved problems, created platforms that lifted humanity forward, and that's why their wealth mattered. Not the dollar amounts, but the impact. Value is the core, money is the echo. Most people get stuck because they are optimizing for the echo instead of the core. They chase salaries, promotions, titles, thinking those will make them wealthy. But in reality, they are just stacking currency without creating meaning. And meaning is the only form of wealth that can't be stolen, taxed, or destroyed. So ask yourself, what value are you creating? What problems are you solving? Whose life is better because you exist? Because that's your real net worth. And the moment you anchor to that, your perspective shifts from accumulation to contribution. When you see wealth as value, you stop comparing yourself to others based on material possessions. You stop measuring your worth by what you consume, and you start measuring by what you create, by the opportunities you generate, by the lives you touch. That shift is powerful because it frees you from envy and scarcity. It replaces the mindset of competition with the mindset of creation, and that is where true abundance lies. You don't get wealthy by taking from others. You get wealthy by building something bigger than yourself. And the irony is once you start focusing on value, money becomes easier because the world rewards those who solve meaningful problems. Think about the iPhone. It wasn't just a product, it was value at scale. It changed how billions of people communicate, work, and live, and in return it generated trillions in wealth. The order matters, value first, money after. In your own life, this principle holds. You may not be building rockets or global companies, but you can still anchor to value, whether it's the work you do, the relationships you nurture, the ideas you pursue. If you focus on making something better, on solving real problems, on adding meaning, you are creating wealth. Even love works the same way. If you see relationships as transactions, as currency exchanges of attention or convenience, they will feel hollow. But if you approach love as value, as contribution, as making the other person's life genuinely better, you create wealth that no market fluctuation can touch. Wealth is not accumulation, it is amplification, amplifying good, amplifying possibility, amplifying human potential. And the truth is, once you understand this, money becomes almost irrelevant, because you realize that money is only valuable insofar as it enables more value. It's fuel for creation, not the destination. That's why chasing money for its own sake always feels empty. It's like burning rocket fuel without a mission, powerful but pointless, noisy but aimless. You need a mission, you need a purpose, you need a definition of wealth that transcends the dollar sign, otherwise no amount will ever be enough. Look at billionaires who are miserable, hoarding numbers on a screen, and ask yourself, are they truly wealthy, or are they just rich? Because there's a difference. Rich is temporary, wealthy is eternal. You become wealthy when you know that what you built, what you contributed, will outlast you, that it will ripple forward, shaping lives you'll never meet, and that's the kind of wealth worth chasing. So here's the challenge. Stop asking how to make more money and start asking how to create more value. Stop asking how to accumulate and start asking how to contribute. Stop obsessing over currency and start obsessing over impact, because when you die, your money dies with you, but your value lives on. The question is, what do you want to be remembered for? The size of your bank account or the size of your impact, the house you lived in or the world you helped build, the possessions you owned or the possibilities you unlocked for others? Real wealth is measured in meaning, and meaning is the one investment that never depreciates. If you really study the forces that drive human beings, you'll find that love is the strongest energy in the universe, stronger than ambition, stronger than fear, stronger than money, because love is the only energy that multiplies every time it's given away. It's the closest thing we have to a renewable, self-sustaining source of power, and it shapes our lives in ways more profound than any technology, any invention, any rocket I could build. We tend to underestimate love, treat it like some soft concept reserved for poetry or movies, but if you analyze human progress with the same rigor you would analyze physics, you'll see that the greatest breakthroughs, the greatest risks, the greatest acts of endurance all stem from love. Love for an idea, love for humanity, love for another person. Without love, people collapse under pressure. Without love, innovation loses meaning. Without love, wealth is just numbers. But with love, everything changes, because it gives people a reason to persist when logic says quit, a reason to sacrifice when comfort says stop, a reason to believe when evidence says impossible. Think of parents who stay awake through the night for their children. That's love as energy. Think of scientists who dedicate their lives to solving problems they may never see completed. That's love as energy. Think of explorers who risk everything to push the boundaries of what's known. That's love as energy. It's the invisible fuel behind resilience, and it's the ultimate disruptor of mediocrity. When I say love, I don't mean just romantic love, though that's part of it. I mean the full spectrum of human connection and devotion: love for your partner, love for your family, love for your work, love for humanity, love for the future, because at its core, love is about seeing value beyond yourself. It's about investing energy into something that outlives your own comfort, your own survival. The strongest leaders, the strongest builders, the strongest innovators aren't driven only by profit or ego. They're driven by love. And that's why their impact lasts. Because love doesn't burn out. It compounds. In technology, we search for sustainable energy. We build solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, and yet the most sustainable energy has been here all along: the human capacity to love, to give without depleting, to grow stronger by sharing. You can run a society on fear for a while. You can run a company on greed for a while. You can even push yourself with ambition for a while. But only love can sustain you across decades. Only love can make sacrifice feel meaningful. Only love can carry you through the nights when failure feels inevitable. It is love that makes a person endure ridicule for chasing a dream. It is love that makes someone risk security for possibility. It is love that keeps humanity striving to build something greater than itself. And here's the paradox. In a world obsessed with efficiency, love seems inefficient. It doesn't follow spreadsheets. It doesn't optimize like an algorithm. But in reality, love is the highest efficiency because it generates resilience, creativity, and cooperation at scales no machine can replicate. If you want to measure love's power, look at what people will do in its name. They will cross oceans, climb mountains, endure suffering, risk everything, and they'll do it without regret. Because love transforms cost into investment, risk into purpose, effort into joy. That's why I say love is the strongest energy, because it changes the equation of life itself. It makes the impossible possible. It makes the unbearable bearable. It makes the ordinary extraordinary. You can see it in small ways too. In the way someone's presence can lift your entire mood. In the way a single encouraging word can change the trajectory of a day. in the way genuine connection can turn strangers into allies. Those are not small things. They're massive. They're proof that love is an energy field shaping the entire human system. Even in business, the companies that thrive long term are the ones built on love, not the superficial kind, but the deep love of solving a problem, the love of serving people, the love of building something meaningful, because love creates trust, and trust is the foundation of every lasting system. You want to know why SpaceX pushes forward despite every setback? It's not just ambition, it's love for the mission, love for humanity's future, love for the idea that we don't have to accept extinction as inevitable. You want to know why Tesla kept going when everyone mocked it? It wasn't money, it was love for the planet, love for the possibility of sustainable energy, love for future generations who deserve clean air and a livable Earth. Without love, I would have quit. Without love, the teams would have collapsed. Without love, the mission would have died. But love is what made us push through when logic said stop. And in your own life, the same principle applies. The strongest relationships, the strongest careers, the strongest legacies will come from love, not convenience, not calculation, but love. Because love gives you access to strength you didn't know you had. It transforms fear into courage. It transforms loneliness into connection. It transforms routine into meaning. We live in a culture that often dismisses love as weakness, that treats vulnerability as fragility. But that's a lie, because vulnerability is strength, and love is the fuel that turns vulnerability into connection, and connection into transformation. Love is not a distraction from success, it's the foundation of it. It's the strongest energy you'll ever have, and if you learn to harness it, to live by it, to lead with it, there's no limit to what you can endure, to what you can create, to what you can become. Endurance is one of the most underestimated forces in human progress. Everyone celebrates the big wins, the headlines, the flashy moments of success, but what really builds greatness are the silent battles, the ones no one sees, the nights when you keep working while the world sleeps, the mornings you wake up after failure and decide to try again, the times you endure rejection, ridicule, exhaustion, and still refuse to quit. Those are the moments that forge strength. Those are the training grounds for resilience. And those are the true proof of character. People imagine that success comes from talent or luck, but talent without endurance is wasted potential, and luck without endurance is meaningless. Because life will test you, again and again, and the only way through is persistence, the stubborn refusal to surrender when everything in you wants to stop. Look at SpaceX. We failed 3 launches in a row, millions of dollars lost, years of work up in flames, experts calling us crazy, the press writing our obituary, and we had 1 launch left before the company would die. Logic said quit. Fear said quit. But endurance said 1 more try, and that 4th launch succeeded. It changed everything. It saved the company, and it was possible only because of endurance, not talent, not luck, but sheer persistence in the face of collapse. Tesla faced the same thing. Near bankruptcy, production nightmares, endless skepticism, and the only reason we survived was because people endured. They kept showing up. They kept fighting through the silent battles that no one applauded, the ones hidden behind every innovation. And that's the lesson for you. The real strength of your life will be measured not by how you perform when the spotlight is on, but by what you do when no one is watching. Silent battles are brutal because they lack recognition. No one cheers you on when you're staying late to finish something. No one applauds you when you resist quitting. No one notices the discipline it takes to keep going without immediate results. And yet those invisible battles are the foundation of every visible victory. They're the compound interest of resilience, stacking day after day until one day you wake up and realize you've built something unbreakable inside yourself. Endurance is not glamorous, it doesn't trend, it doesn't get likes, it doesn't feed ego, but it builds something far more valuable. It builds proof. Proof that you can trust yourself. Proof that you can survive storms. Proof that you can persist beyond pain. And that proof becomes your confidence, your foundation, your unshakable edge in a world where most people quit too soon. The truth is, most people overestimate what they can do in a day but underestimate what they can do in a decade. They want instant results, instant validation, instant success. And when it doesn't come, they stop, they retreat, they give up. But endurance means playing the long game. It means trusting that effort compounds, that persistence stacks, that the invisible will eventually become visible if you refuse to quit. Endurance is like engineering a rocket. Every component, every detail matters, but what really determines success is whether the system can survive failure after failure, stress after stress, without collapsing. And your life works the same way. It's not about being flawless, it's about being unbreakable, and unbreakable is built in the silent battles, not in the easy victories. Think about your own life. Think about the times you kept going when no one cared, when you were tired, when you doubted yourself, when quitting seemed logical. Those moments shaped you more than any achievement. Those moments are why you're still here, and they're proof that you can endure again. People talk about grit, resilience, toughness, but what they really mean is endurance, the ability to outlast the storm, to keep moving when motivation fades, to persist when others quit, to stay in the fight long enough for the tide to turn. Endurance doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means you keep moving despite the pain. It doesn't mean you don't face fear. It means you keep going despite the fear. It doesn't mean you don't fail. It means you refuse to let failure be final. And here's the paradox. Endurance often feels like nothing is happening. You grind day after day with no visible result, but beneath the surface, something is building, strength is compounding, resilience is forming, and when the breakthrough comes, people will call it sudden, overnight, but you'll know it wasn't. You'll know it was built in silence. In the countless invisible battles you fought and won without applause, endurance is the ultimate competitive advantage because most people quit. Most people can't handle long stretches without validation. Most people fold under pressure. But if you endure, if you persist, if you refuse to stop, you separate yourself, you build an edge that no one can fake, because endurance cannot be bought, cannot be hacked, cannot be outsourced. It must be lived. And the truth is, endurance is not just about achievement, it's about identity. It transforms who you are, it rewrites your self-image, it turns you into someone who trusts their own strength, someone who knows deep down that no matter what happens, you can handle it, you can outlast it, you can survive it, and that identity is priceless because it frees you from fear, it frees you from doubt, it frees you from the illusion that you need perfect conditions to succeed. You don't need perfect conditions, you need endurance. You don't need constant motivation. You need endurance. You don't need talent beyond reason. You need endurance because talent will fail, motivation will fade, conditions will shift, but endurance will carry you through. So stop underestimating the power of your silent battles. Stop dismissing the nights you kept going as insignificant. Stop thinking your persistence doesn't matter because it wasn't recognized. It matters more than anything. It is the difference between those who build something lasting and those who vanish, between those who make history and those who are forgotten. Endurance is not glamorous, but it is everything. It is the hidden engine behind every rocket that reaches orbit, every company that survives, every relationship that lasts, every human who becomes unbreakable. Embrace it, live it, trust it, because in the end, your endurance will define you more than your victories ever will. Every life comes down to defining moments, those rare inflection points where everything shifts, where the choices you make ripple forward for decades, and the truth is you don't get to schedule those moments. They don't arrive with advance notice. They don't wait until you feel ready. They just appear, suddenly, like a door swinging open in the middle of your ordinary routine. And in that instant, you are faced with a choice. Step through and change your story, or hesitate and let it close forever. Most people miss their defining moments not because they lack potential, but because they're waiting for perfect conditions. They tell themselves they'll act when they feel ready, when they have more resources, more confidence, more clarity, but perfect conditions don't exist. Rockets never launch with zero risk. Systems never align flawlessly. Breakthroughs never arrive in neat packages. They come messy, uncertain, inconvenient, and the people who seize them are the ones willing to act despite not feeling ready. That's what defines you, not what you plan for, not what you intend, but what you do when the moment comes, when life tests whether all your endurance, all your love, all your effort was preparation or just talk. I've lived this. SpaceX nearly died after 3 failed launches. The defining moment was the fourth. One last chance. Everything on the line. And there was no guarantee, no safety net. But in that moment, the choice was clear. Launch or fade, risk everything or accept defeat. And we launched, and that moment rewrote the entire story of the company. The same with Tesla, drowning in debt, production nightmares, skepticism everywhere. The defining moment was whether to double down or shut down, whether to endure or retreat, and we chose to push harder, and that choice defined the future. Your life has these moments too. Maybe not as visible, maybe not in front of cameras, but just as important, the relationship you choose to pursue or ignore, the opportunity you choose to seize or dismiss, the risk you choose to take or avoid, These are the moments that become turning points, and they define not just what you achieve, but who you become. The danger is that most people don't even recognize them. They're so busy waiting for fireworks that they miss the quiet hinge points, the subtle conversations, the ordinary days that suddenly carry extraordinary weight, and by the time they realize, the door has closed. The defining moment doesn't care if you're ready. It cares if you're willing. It doesn't ask if you have certainty. It asks if you have courage. It doesn't wait for your schedule. It interrupts it. And your response is what defines you. This is why endurance matters, why love matters, why turning off autopilot matters. Because those qualities prepare you, they build your foundation, they sharpen your instincts, so that when the moment comes, you recognize it, you feel it in your bones, and you act. And here's the paradox. You'll never feel fully prepared. You'll never feel fully confident, but you don't need to. What you need is the willingness to step into uncertainty, to trust that you can adapt as you go, to believe that your preparation will catch up to your leap. People imagine their defining moment as grand, cinematic, but often it's quiet. It's the job offer you almost ignored, the person you almost didn't talk to, the risk you almost didn't take, and if you hesitate, it slips away. But if you act, it changes everything. The defining moment is the meeting point of your past and your future. It's the convergence of everything you've endured and everything you could become. And that's why it's so powerful. It's the moment where your story pivots, where your narrative rewrites itself, where you stop being a passenger and start being the author. And the truth is, you don't just get one defining moment, you get many. But each time the stakes feel the same, each time the question is identical, will you step forward or stay back? Will you embrace change or cling to comfort? Will you write the story or let it be written for you? The people who live extraordinary lives are not the ones who had more opportunities. They are the ones who seized them when they came, who treated each defining moment as sacred, who didn't waste the chance to pivot. And here's the part that scares people. There is no next time, not in the way you imagine, because each defining moment is unique. Once missed, it doesn't return in the same form. Maybe another door will open, but not that door. Not with those variables, not with those possibilities, and so hesitation is the silent killer of potential. If you've ever wondered why some people break through and others don't, it's not luck, it's not talent, it's the willingness to act in defining moments, to accept the risk, to leap into uncertainty, to move when others freeze. So here's the challenge for you. Stop waiting for readiness. Start living like your defining moment could arrive today, because it might. Start preparing by building endurance, by cultivating love, by creating value, so that when the door opens, you don't hesitate, you don't second guess, you don't retreat, you step through and never look back. This is how you write your story, not by clinging to control, not by waiting for certainty, but by embracing the moments that demand courage, by using the collisions, the disruptions, the opportunities to pivot into a new trajectory. Life is not about waiting for the perfect chapter. It's about seizing the pen when it's offered and writing with bold strokes, even if your hand shakes. The defining moment will come, maybe more than once. And when it does, remember this. It will not wait. It will not adjust itself to your schedule. It will not guarantee success. It will simply open the door. And what happens next depends entirely on you.